Imagine, if you will, that everything wasn't a ladder, something to climb, something to ascend, with a top and a bottom, and things up there being higher, more important, more valuable than the things down below. The world would be a very different place, wouldn't it, if we thought more in the round? For many decades now, there's been a lot of talk about whether or not we should shift our perspective from Jacob's ladder to Sarah's circle and what that would even mean. What would it mean to think in the round? John Michael Greer posited the idea of the tree of life as a circle that shows us both the wheel of the year as it's practiced in Druidry, Wicca, and in some pagan circles, but also as a way of understanding our relation and interrelations with the cosmos itself. So, yeah, I have to ask you, have you thought about life in the round? Let's talk about that together as we walk down creation's path. Hello, everyone. My name is Charlie. I am a Christopagan Druid and priest of Bridget.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brian. I'm a Christopagan Druid and sous chef to the Dogda.
Today, we're going to be talking about learning to see the tree of life as a circle, the tree of life as a round, and how that can profoundly change our way of thinking about and understanding so much about life.
Or as I like to think of it in this, as we continue our exploration in the chapter of the ways of love, uniting, taking Kether and taking Malkuth and linking them together into one complete circle in union of true love.
Wow. Wow. Before I go too far down that rabbit hole, if you haven't already, don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, whatever the terminology happens to be on whatever app you're listening to us on. We do original Christopagan and Druid episodes 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, and you don't want to miss a thing. We are going to be talking today about the tree of life in the round and exactly what that means.
Hey, as I serve up my truths, ladling it from the cauldron of plenty, they gotta have lots. Lots of them. Lots of, yeah.
Your jokes, man.
So bad.
Your jokes are a thing that exists. All right. So the basic idea for this arises, I believe it was in his book, Natural Magic. John Michael Greer put forward the idea of the tree of life and how it relates to the 8 festivals, Sabbats of the traditional year. And for anybody who knows anything about the Kabbalistic Tree of Life, you're probably thinking to yourself, but there are 10 Sephirah? Yes, there are those other 2, Yesod and Sephirah, that make up part of the middle pillar. They're already associated with the sun or Sephirah, and Yesod is already associated with the moon. So they are in the middle there and give us the lunar cycle and the solar cycle. This actually kind of fits together quite well, doesn't it? Interesting to see. And when we start drawing out the tree of life into a circle, it doesn't change as much as you think it would. What it does change is your understanding of how it flows, because no longer do you have pillars per se. You have a ring and you have a path that goes down the middle. Wait a minute. So we have a circle and a path. Wait, where have I heard that? That sounds like how ritual works, doesn't it?
A circle and a path?
Yeah. You know, the people that you're there with, then the road that you're walking. If I'm not careful, I'm going to break down and start singing The Witch's Road from Agatha All Alone. I actually think that that's a line in that song. It's so much more than just changing a diagram. And I guess we should start off by saying we were talking about the Hermetic Kabbalah here, which has a separate but interconnected lineage and history with the Jewish Kabbalah, but they are separate things. Interrelated, kind of cousins. They were born together, but have developed separately for hundreds of years. I'm not saying that we need to throw away the traditional tree of life or any of the others, because for those who aren't familiar, this diagram of understanding the emanation of God or the energies of the cosmos has been drawn a lot of different ways, from a series of nested circles to any number of geometric forms for how to demonstrate and lay out the interrelationship between these 10 aspects of the divine, these energies that flowed into and continue to maintain, and sustain the world. What's really powerful about this image in seeing it as a circle is seeing it as a dance. So I'm going to try not to get a little too esoteric. Feel weird even saying that with this, because we haven't really done an episode on the Kabbalah, and I don't know how familiar everyone is with this. So I'm going to primarily use English words instead of the traditional Hebrew, so that this part is easier to understand. Okay. So Kether, or the crown, which is the very top of the tree, is set, according to him, at Alban Arthan, or Yule. As we're here on the shortest night of the year, this is when we are at this point. And it's beautiful because this is the point where the light, the energy enters the system and starts flowing. This is the place where we start first experiencing the divine. This is that jumping off point into the darkness of unknowing, and the two work really, really well. So Imbolc would be on the sphere of wisdom. Makes sense to me. This is the festival for Brigid. This is the time, the Lady of Justice, of poetry, of animal husbandry, of the forge. I think that works quite well.
Beginning of spring.
We have Alban Ailer, which is coming up for us on the sphere of loving kindness. So yeah, the mid-spring festival right there on the sphere of loving kindness. That makes a lot of sense, right? Then we have Bealtaine on the sphere of victory. And yeah, summer is here. The day is here. The days are getting longer and longer and longer. That works beautifully. Then the kingdom, Malkuth, the sphere that represents the world that we live in, the world that we are in now, is, I don't use the term Litha, but if you're familiar with the way Wicca terms these holidays, this would be the celebration of Litha. This is Alban Hurin. This is that midsummer festival where we are there at the height of the sun's victory, the full power of everything that is. Yeah, that makes sense to me. And then as we're heading into fall, we go into the sphere of splendor, which is there at Lunasa. Yeah.
Harvest and splendor. I mean,
Harvest and splendor. Then we get to go to the festival of Mabon, or Alban Eluid, which is on the sphere of strength, the sphere of justice. Yeah, there you are, mid-fall. You're doing the quest for the Mabon, for the Child of Light. You're there. Yeah, this is all making sense.
This is the time when you're taking stock of all your harvests, and this is the time when all that's being accounted for, and you're putting aside what you need to plant for next year, and you're putting aside what you can eat to survive through the winter. And it's very much justice and strength.
And is there on the sphere of understanding, which this is a very powerful festival. The goddess of prophecy is presiding over it, and the spirits of the ancestors are coming back, and we're heading into winter.
The huntsman, the strategy and planning, understanding what path you're going to take. Yeah.
It makes so much sense to me in how he laid it out and how it all works together. I think it's a very powerful image, because if you've practiced magic, I'm sure at some point somebody has mentioned the lightning bolt, where you go down the tree in a zigzag pattern from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6, all the way down. What I find interesting about this one is it inviting this circulation, because it's a circulation that makes sense when you're thinking of having power flow, starting in the cold, starting up there in the Yule, in the crown, and flowing through wisdom to loving kindness, to victory, to the kingdom, to splendor. And I love that the kingdom comes before splendor, and from splendor to strength, and from strength to understanding, and from understanding to the crown, and back around again. And having the cycles of beauty, the sphere of beauty, which is in the middle, and the sphere of righteousness, or technically the righteous foundation. That's sphere used to be referred to as a Yesod Sadiq, but it's now generally just called Yesod, which is the foundation. being the moon, in the middle, governing all of the other cycles in the middle here. It's a really interesting way to start thinking about this flow, because that's the clockwise flow. The counterclockwise flow works the other way around. And you can see this banishing. Like you can literally see banishing on the tree because you start at the crown, you would then start at the crown, and then you go from understanding to strength and justice to splendor to the kingdom to victory to loving kindness to wisdom, swiping the power out and pulling the power in. You can actually see these two cycles flowing in and out. That works so well. And so, as a way of starting to perceive magic, and I know this is getting a little advanced because we haven't talked about the Sephirah that was mentioned in this chapter. They talk about the Tree of Life. And this is something we can do a whole deep dive series into if you want, if y'all want, and probably will do at some point. And if all of that seemed like a lot to you, the main thing to really bear in mind here, what we're talking about in this, is learning to see this flow of energy, not like water falling down a step ladder on its way down to us, but learning to see it flowing in currents that can go around clockwise, they can go around counterwise, they can go down the middle, they can take this meandering path if they still follow the lightning bolt all the way down to us below. And we can see all of this presented so beautifully in this image, in this idea. And to me, this has become my primary way of perceiving the Tree of Life. And I've developed a little bit of unverified personal gnosis around this. This actually came to me in a dream because I've been thinking about this for a while. I don't know how many years I've been thinking about this. It's the cross section of the Tree of Life. This is seeing the trunk of the tree in all of those veins where the sap of the Tree of Life flow up and down and across. This is literally looking at a cross section of the tree. That's why we're looking at it in a circle. This is what that column looks like on the way up. This is what that trunk of the tree looks like. If you were to cut the tree and look at its face, right at its face across the grain. And when I started thinking about it like that, this became such a powerful, enlivening image for me. Because now, unlike the way that I had originally learned Kabbalah, I can see things that I had always intuitively felt, but didn't have a way to express well in these terms of how, well, loving kindness can just flow down to us. And yeah, it might bring some other things with it, but loving kindness doesn't have to flow through all of the others to get down to us. That it can just flow down because this is that cross section of the trunk where it can just go straight down that one vein down to where we are, or straight up the roots up into the leaves. I don't know. It's a powerful image for me.
So here's a fun application of that image, actually, from the story in the chapter that we just went through on the ways of love. You start out there in Kether, the crown, the dream, this magical place, this mystical place, this space. And then Angus is seeking this wisdom. It's struck by this force, this unseen force, literally strikes him sick.
Another way to interpret the word I said, which is loving kindness, is devotion.
Yeah, and devotion, like, is almost obsessed to the core with this vision, this repeating vision, and this yearning, knowing that there's the wisdom of that there is something out there, the faith, something greater out there that he needs in his life. The loving kindness, we move on to the loving kindness of
Yeah,
his
the
father,
devotion.
the devotion and the loving kindness of his father to go on this quest to try to find her and to set the entire kingdom on this quest to try to find this person that may or may not even exist. It takes that devotion and that loving kindness to be able to go on the quest. You don't even know if there's an answer to it. It could just be the machinations of a dream still at this point. And then you move on
To victory.
to
He
victory. They
conquers
found
his
her.
foes. They found her. She exists.
They found her. That's the very first victory is they found she is real. You know, she exists.
She exists. She's real.
And then you move on to
He conquers the kingdom. Like
Well,
literally, Malkuth, he
yeah,
conquers the kingdom.
yeah,
He
he
goes to
conquers the
war.
kingdom.
He goes to war and conquers the kingdom of the other king of the Sidhe to get
to
her. And
to get her,
king, you have to understand, you have to give her to me. I need her for my son. My son will die for his love of
without
her
her,
without her.
which is part of the victory. The victory part is he's got the king now. He knows she exists. He knows he is learning where she is and how to get her,
And the king reveals the splendor.
which you move into the justice.
No, then don't skip over that part.
I'm sorry.
The king reveals the
king,
splendor. I can't give her to you. She is greater than I am. She is more
yeah,
powerful than I am. You saw her as she is. Every year at Samhain, she and all of her maidens turn into swans. That she is greater than me. You move into the splendor
you
where
move
you
into
get
the
to see
splendor,
Care Embereth in all of her glory.
and then you move into strength and justice. It takes a lot of strength to go, I've conquered you and your kingdom. I have imprisoned you. And to go, and I was wrong, and to let them go, and to recognize that
And to make
the
peace.
real strength is to make peace and to heal and to let a thing be what it is. Real strength is recognizing that. And then you move into that understanding.
No, not yet. Not yet. They take Angus to the
Oh,
shore
sorry.
of
Yeah,
the
they do.
and
You're right.
strengthen him up. Like we get a double dose of the strength here, right? Because they take him to the shore of the lake and strengthen him up and bring him the hearty meals and everything, and they force him to eat and get his strength back so that he can then go to her.
Yeah. And then in going to her, that's when the understanding hits. It's a choice. He understands the union. He understands that it's not only, her union with him, it's his union with her. When they embrace each other and he transforms, that they can be together.
It's before he embraces her, he reaches out to her and his
Yeah, he
arms
reaches out to
become
her.
wings. And
It's
then
this
we're back
place
at
of
the mystery.
understanding.
And
And
then
then
we're
we're back
back
at
at
the
the mystery. And we see the story continue from there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a beautiful way of looking at this cycle. And it's a different way of looking at this cycle because we can also see the power of beauty at the heart of the story. That's one of the spheres in the middle here, right? Beauty and foundation. We can see them in the center of the story the whole time. And we can see this as they move into the center here, right? And they embrace in this beauty, this beautiful moment of making love when time itself stops. The whole world stops for 3 days in this embrace that they have with each other, right? You can see the whole story in there. And I think you can see a lot of other stories in here as well. It's a really interesting and powerful tool when you start thinking outside of the ladder, right? A ladder has an end. You get to the top and you're done. But the spiritual life isn't a ladder. It's a journey. It's a circle. It's a spiral. And when you actually study the Kabbalah, what you start learning is that the top is in the bottom and the bottom's in the top. So once you get to the top and you think, oh, I've reached the crown, you realize, oh, I'm in a new kingdom and the crown's still up there. You have to keep climbing. It's a ladder that just keeps going. That's the revelation from this and that hierarchical model. But here we're seeing it as a journey. It's a cycle. We can meander through it. We can walk through it. And learning to see life in this cyclical way is one, the importance of the 8 festivals. It's not because, well, we're celebrating the sun or we're celebrating the seasons. Those are important, but they're grounding us into this reality of the cycle of our lives. From the birth of the child of light at Alban Arthan or Yule, all the way through his life and all that he does. We could do a story of the cycle for Taichu, who is the goddess who is sacrificed at Lunasa, whose sacrifice blesses the land. We could do it in the story of Lu, who sacrificed himself again at Lunasa when he fights Bresh. We could do this in the cycle for Bridget. We could do this cycle for my life, for your life, for Brian's life. We could do this cycle. Actually, sorry, I just started laughing because one of Bridget's sons was named Brian, and I was like, wait, which Brian am I talking about? Heather.
No.
Either Brian, we could do the cycle for. And we start seeing that it can go one way, it can go the other way, it can meander through. And when we lose this rigidity of a series of steps from the bottom to the top, we realize that sometimes we can go from the crown to beauty to strength. We don't always go through the other places. We can see what we're missing in our lives. And that's the power of the image we're talking about. But even beyond this particular image, we can see the power of this way of thinking in realizing that everything floats in a cycle. What's the phrase? History doesn't repeat, but it always rhymes. We can see these cycles. They repeat every year, every 3 years, every 7 years, every 20 years. We can see these cycles. We can start measuring them. We can find them, whether they're in our lives, in our cultures, in our world. We can see these cycles. We can learn these cycles. We can figure out where we are in the progression of it. And we can start seeing where we're going. It helps us to understand the map of our lives when we start seeing things in the round. We get lost when we try to think of life as a straight path because we're like, how am I here again? When the right answer is, of course you're here again. But here is not the same here it was last time. The circumstances are changed. You hopefully have changed. And while it might look or feel familiar, it's important to see the differences because, again, it's a cycle, it's a circuit, it is a flow, always going to be going around and around in the endless round. And like with life here on Earth, where we walk around and we don't see the curvature because we're too close to it. This round often doesn't feel round. It feels like a straight road because we're so close to it, we can't see the curve. We don't realize that we're going around the bend because it's so subtle.
And I love how the pathing can be so different. For instance, hopefully all of us have experienced that profound, like sunset, for instance, that just is awe inspiring, takes your breath away. And you could have one person seeing that sunset. So they're starting at the crown, this profound sunset, and they're caught up in this moment of wisdom, leading them to the beauty, which opens them up to loving kindness. And you could have a different person beholding this profound sunset, once again, starting in the crown, going directly to the beauty of it, and then pulling strength from the beauty in that moment to gain a deeper understanding in life. And these are just two different pathings from the same moment. And it is just a very interesting way to perceive and view.
And again, whether you're using a simple diagram like we're talking about here, which I do believe that I put a copy of this up over on Wisdom's Cry in the Kabbalah section for anybody who wants to get yourself a copy of it. All of my notes, by the way, do always go up over on Wisdom's Cry, wisdomscry.com. It's an ever evolving collection of my thoughts on spirituality, magic, and mysticism. There should be a version of this stuff over there. But it just, again, I don't want to get locked just in this one diagram or this one image. As while it is important, and I think that it is a profound way that we're going to be using going forward in discussing not just the spiritual path and the mysticism and the magic that we're doing, but what's more important is this understanding of cycles and the cyclic nature of life. This is why when people really get deep into the spiritual practice, we find them starting to be far more interested in and accepting of concepts like reincarnation. And it's not because they suddenly have a certainty about what happens to us after death, but they start seeing the cyclical nature of everything. And it's just an easy assumption. Of course, it goes around again. We go around again. And by the way, if one of the most powerful things that I've ever thought about it as a thought experiment, I can't remember who did it. Within the lifespan of the universe, there is enough time that upon your death and dissolution into just the base elements of your body, there it is probabilistically sound that all of those elements will be brought back together again at least 3 or 4 times. The chance of all of those elements getting recycled and brought back together will happen. Like just staying on the level of just physical matter, which is mind-boggling when you think about it. The elements that are making you up now could have been a dinosaur in the past and have been recollected and put together to make you here now. This idea of physical molecular reincarnation is just fascinating in and of itself. And even more so if you believe that there is a spirit or energy that does give us life. But I think it's so valuable when we're starting our studies and we're just getting into the idea of magic as we're beginning to practice Druidcraft to acknowledge and celebrate the cyclical nature of life. Everything flows in circles. Nature does not like straight edges. It really doesn't. Everything's going to flow in meandering and strange ways. And once we get out of that rigidity of our logical mind, which is valuable for certain tasks, but in a lot of the tasks that we're here discussing in navigating the vagaries of life, logic is not helpful at all because one, we're dealing with other people or other beings, and just limiting it to people aren't rational actors, no matter how much they protest and pretend that they are. So trying to pretend that people are rational and that you can apply logic to their behavior is a dangerous path in and of itself. But when you start learning to see the ebbs, the flows, the currents, and the cycles, it's like we were talking about earlier in the actual discussion of the chapter itself, getting to feel nature of love and how it fills and permeates your life and how it augments and changes certain aspects of your life. How if when you start practicing this idea of, even if it's just philosophical animism and granting personhood to everything in your life, from the plants to the animals to the things to the places, you start developing a stronger relationship and bond and a different relationship and bond. This is that next step. We're starting to see those energies. We're starting to see those cycles. You notice we started naming a bunch of them: wisdom, understanding, beauty, loving kindness, strength, victory, splendor, this foundation or righteousness. All of these things we've given names to, these energies that we can reach out to, we can touch, we can participate in. And there's so many more beyond just those that we could be talking about. Once we start seeing these energies and how they actually flow and work in our lives, and see the ebbs, the flows, the tide going in, the tide going out, the circulation of all of it, we start understanding and having an appreciation for where we are, what is going on with and around us, and how we can act and not react to make our lives. And that is the heart and the secret of magic. I hope this one wasn't too much. We talked about a lot on this episode. Again, if you want to see the diagrams that we're talking about, I'll try to remember to put a link on the front page of Wisdom's Cry for it. And if we're really good about it, we'll even put a link in the description box for it. But
down in the notes.
Alrighty. I hope that you have gotten some of that out of this. What are your thoughts? We've talked a little bit about this flow, this cycle, this circle before. How have your ideas grown, developed, changed? Have they stayed the same? Let me know. If you're listening to us on YouTube or Spotify, you can leave a comment right there. If you're listening to us anywhere else, even if they say you can leave a comment, they do not notify us, and we will not know. So leave a comment there anyway, because engagement is magic. And then go over to creationspass.com, click on chat, and you can leave a comment there. While you're there, if you have a few dollars you can pass our way, we offer monthly and annual donations, monthly and annual memberships. You can also support us on Patreon and Ko-fi. I am CE Dorset on both. And you can also support us through Cash App at #CreationsPass. Thank you to everybody who does that. You really do help us out a lot, like more than you know, keeping the lights on, keeping a roof over our head, and food on our table. If you don't have any money right now, or you're not sure that we're the kind of people that you want to give your hard-earned treasure to, that's perfectly all right. But if we've helped you out at all, if you've enjoyed any of our episodes, or if you think any of our episodes would help anyone else out, please share them. That helps us out more than you could ever possibly know. And as we are heading out, child of light, whose birth and life is celebrated in the 8 cycles, the 8 Sabbats of the year, whose light we seek and whose birth we celebrate, help us and guide us so that we may find our way in this life and into the glories to come. Amen.
Amen.